So, obviously, stepping away from Colney Heath, again, kind of similar question to the one I had for Tring. Was this a known quantity that you were going to leave at the end of the season, or was it kind of another situation where Stopfold asked the question and step up for you, or?
No, it was a bit of a different situation there. So I thought I would carry on with Coney Heath. They decided they wanted to go in a different direction, and that's their prerogative. It's their football club. That's their decision. I guess look, if a team removes the manager that's won a few trophies, everyone's going to talk about it, and I was, I guess, the beneficiary of that in terms of lots of people, were talking about it, and probably the reason why you've asked me to come on here, because I don't think anyone even knew I existed before that. So the fact that that decision was made, although it was closing a door in one regard, it actually opened lots of doors, and I was really grateful to all of the clubs that reached out to me. I spoke to lots of clubs in that next sort of 7 to 10 days. I spoke to 7 or 8 clubs, I think. But once I met Rob and Eddie, so chairman Rob at Stotfold and Eddie's first team manager, I think between meeting them and joining, I think it was a day or two, I think. It was, Stotfold is obviously a Step 4 team in their first team. Got not a brand new stadium, but probably one of the newest stadiums in the area. Great setup, and it's you were talking about earlier about Suburban League being the gold standard for sort of development football, but this is a reserve team that's on the football pyramid. It's at Step 6, and so it was a logical, I guess, again, another progression for me, another challenge for me. It's really grateful, I say, to everyone that I spoke to, but really enjoyed the conversation with Rob and Eddie, and it's been going well so far. Enjoying it.
Yeah. What made you interested in Stopfold that almost separated them from the other clubs you'd spoken to in particular?
I have to say, Stotfold reserves, obviously, I think Leighton reserves are also in that division. You can't go higher than Step 6 with the reserve side. So, you could look at that as a negative in terms of, well, you can't really go any higher. What are you going to achieve? The previous manager, John Little, I don't know him particularly well, but he's cultivated a brilliant side that he's progressed all the way up to that level. And a lot of those guys are pushing up to Step 5 and Step 4 even in some cases. So, I wish him and them all the best for their future. They've been a massive part of Stotfold. The challenge for me is, can I maintain even the success that they've had? Can we try and replicate, or can we get close to what they achieved, with pretty much a clean slate? It's pretty much, there's maybe 1 or 2 players that have retained, but most people, it was pretty much a brand new team. So our challenge is attracting new players and recruiting new players, and basically building a team that can compete at that level.
Yeah. So obviously you mentioned there about a lot of players leaving with the management and things like that. And I saw obviously on Twitter that there was kind of open trials.
Yep.
How integral is that now, the open trials, to maybe the success you're going to have in the season? Obviously bringing in, that gives you a large pool of local players, because if you're a Step 7 player, for instance, and you hear Stotfold are looking for players, your ears prick up. Do you think that's giving you a wide enough pool to look at for who you can bring in, who's quality enough to play at Step 6?
I was impressed with the level of players that we attracted to the trial, and I think we had to close it after 3 days. We had 50 players, so there were lots of people that attended, lots of people that showed what they can do. You talked before about what attracts people to clubs, but if you're a young player looking at coming to Stotfold Reserves, you know that there's a chance to play regular Step 6 football and the chance to potentially push into a first team at Step 4. So, it's an attractive proposition. Like I say, there's great facilities at the club, great stadium, great pitch. Clubhouse has cold beer in it. There's lots of good things. So, I think it's a good place for young people to come and again get experience of football, get experience of that level, and progress in their journey.
Yeah. Do you also feel that a successful reserve team could be directly responsible for a successful first team? Because I know a lot of teams, like you said about Colney Heath, do rely on their pathways, whereas you look at some teams that, I'm not going to cast judgment on them in particular, but certain teams don't care so much about a pathway. So
I think sometimes teams can be victims of their own success. I had a good conversation with Andrew at Cheshunt Development. I hope he doesn't mind me mentioning his name, but they are in Step 7, but their first team is Step 3, and so that's a really big jump for players to make that transition between the two teams. So Stotfold Reserves, Step 6 to Step 4, that's a manageable step for players moving between a reserve and a first team. So, I think absolutely. I just don't think. I think if you want to be a successful football club, you've got to build a community and you've got to have people engaged with your club, and that means if you can offer as much football to local people as possible, if you can provide reserves and under 18s and youth football as well as your first team offering, then that gives you a good chance of building that community and entertaining them, engaging them, and generally having more success.
Yeah. So obviously it's a new league to you, kind of as a manager. Are there any grounds or teams you're particularly looking forward to playing against, or maybe not say fearing, but feeling are going to be a tough gig for you?
I'll hold my hands up and say I don't know masses about all the teams. I saw the Spartan Talk X feed, Twitter feed, whatever it's called, were asking people for their sort of predictions for the divisions, and a lot of people were seemed to be tipping Ampthill, and I think East and Soken were the two in our division that everyone seemed to be tipping. So look, I have no doubt that a lot for a lot of young players, if we just talked about the attraction of joining a club like Stotfold, but for some players, if they have a choice to be in a first team at Step 6 or a reserve team at Step 6, some people will choose that first team because it's a first team and they're a first team player. Now, I don't necessarily agree with that, but that's probably me being slightly biased as a reserve team manager. But some people make that decision. So, we're going to be up against a lot of experienced sides, well-established teams, and going back to what we talked about earlier with Tring, we're going to have to be, as a team, we're going to have to be adaptable and learn how to win, do what it takes to win, right? Whether that's to battle hard, whether that's to play long or play short, whatever we need to do, we're going to try and get all those tools in the toolbox for the players.
Yeah. So with this question, you can be as diplomatic as you want to be. I know it's kind of a taboo subject in especially kind of Step 7, Step 6, Step 5 football. Does a reserve team have a budget?
My reserve team doesn't. I don't know if other reserve teams do. I mean, I'd be very surprised if many reserve teams have a budget. I mean, generally, most grassroots or lower teams lower down the pyramid don't have huge budgets, and if they do, they would probably use it for their first team, and rightly so. So, I think if you're looking at if there's a player that wants to play step 6 and their motivation is money, then I think their head's in the wrong place. I think honestly, most young players, I would hope, are looking to progress in their football journey, push on, improve to whatever level they can be. None of the coaches get paid, so I think if money's your main motivation as a player, then there's probably something not right.